Taliesin West is a UNESCO World Heritage Site situated in the foothills of the McDowell Mountains in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you do an internet search for things to do in Scottsdale or Phoenix, Taliesin West is almost always at the top of the list. I recently joined a 90-minute guided tour through the dwelling and will share a brief summary of the experience. Taliesin West was established in 1937 by the genius architect Frank Lloyd Wright. It served as his winter home, but also as a laboratory for the architecture community. You are not allowed to visit the estate without joining a tour, and you need to make a reservation and pay online before arriving. When you drive up from the sprawling residential neighborhoods of Scottsdale, you take a winding road through some desert landscape and end up at the parking lot and entrance. The parking is ample and free. You check in at the ticket counter and are then directed to meet your tour guide at the specified time and place. The tour started on the outside, and the guide gave us a brief history of Taliesin. We traveled along an outside path to get to the back of the building, where there was a triangular pool. The guide explained how Wright used triangles throughout the structure, with everything on an angle. As a lover of architecture, I found this fascinating and started finding triangles everywhere, including the slanted walls. You'll see lots of examples as we make our way through the house. We were eventually led to what Wright called the prow, which was the apex of the space and had magnificent views of the valley. If you looked back from the prow towards the building, you could see the mountains behind. Wright planned these visual details to take advantage of the surrounding nature. There was an outside patio where people would gather. Taliesin, which means shining brow, was created to be a gathering place for artists and architect interns. Wright would invite apprentices to stay for 2 or 3 years. They had to pay room and board, live in tents on the property, and help to build the structures. The history was fascinating, and the laboratory for architects continues to this day. Wright was inspired by nature and fell in love with the desert when he first visited. He used a technique called compression and release, which starts small and then expands. We saw this technique throughout the building, with small openings and hallways leading to more expansive spaces. Much of the furniture was built in and created for the specific spaces. Wright was a short man and didn't believe in wasted space, so the ceilings are very low throughout. Some of the roofs were made of canvas to let the light in, although they evidently weren't very waterproof. I thought this built-in divider in the bedroom was interesting. No explanation was given, but you had to wonder what his wife thought of it. Many details of the architecture were explained, such as the use of dentils, not only for decoration, but to create light and shadow displays within the house. Here are a few more images within the house. After touring the small house, you are led to a room that serves as a museum with photography of Wright and his artist friend Georgia O'Keefe. It displayed some wonderful black and white photos. We then visited the architect's studio with rows of drafting tables, which is still used today. The house is made of natural stone, and every so often there is an Asian sculpture built into the stones. Evidently, Wright loved Asian art. Outside, you can see a wonderful perspective down a long promenade, again with the use of triangles. There are also water features around the outside of the property. The tour ends in a small theater or cabaret where Wright would host artists in an intimate setting. Again, the details of the space are so impressively designed, with the acoustics of the musicians and the sightlines of the audience in mind. Of course, the tour is much more detailed than this and includes lovely stories about Wright and his philosophy. He definitely had a sense of humor. When one of the workers kept losing his hammer, he cemented it right into one of the walls. There is a museum shop that is open to the public and is definitely worth a visit. It is full of beautiful art pieces and handicrafts that reflect Wright's iconic style. I would definitely encourage you to visit Taliesin West, especially if you are an architect buff. It is not a cheap ticket, but the admission does go towards the upkeep of the site. Taliesin West is both senior and solo traveler friendly. If you'd like to follow more of my senior and solo travels, please like and subscribe. Cheers!